You know, sometimes you're in need of a higher end camera that is for live production and studio recordings. And sometimes you're in need of that higher end production equipment without the price tag to match it. Which means that sometimes you're in the need for something like this. This right here is the PTZ Optics Move 4K 30X. And today we're going to take a look at the pros and cons of this pretty crazy camera right here. Hey, what's up everyone? Game Dad here, and before we go any further, I want to give a huge shout out to the folks over at PTZ Optics for sending me their Move 4K 30X to be able to check out and share with all of you. And I have a lot to share about this camera. This thing can do a ton of stuff, and honestly, the cons were pretty hard to find. But as usual with any product review, all thoughts are my own. They don't get to control what goes into this video. All they could do was send me a product, let me play around with it, and see what my thoughts are. So let's go ahead and dive in, starting with the pros of the PTZ Optics Move 4K 30X. Now, first, let's start with the name of the company, PTZ Optics. Well, that's going to tell you right there what kind of camera this is. PTZ, pan, tilt, zoom. So, pan, tilt, zoom. The 30X is also how much it can zoom. It can zoom 30X, and I got to tell you, it can go from very wide to very, very pinpoint, which is pretty stinking awesome. And what was also cool about this, because it is more of a higher end production camera, this little guy right here, that is a tally light. If you don't know what a tally light is, like I didn't before this, it turns on a red indicator to let you know which camera is live, because that's another pro. You can network tons of these together to make a full production setup. You can have multiple of them on at once, you can have only certain ones on, and you can control where they go, and it will tell you which one is active by the red tally light on top of it. Now, I mentioned you could network these, and that's just one of the many connections that this thing offers. It will pretty much do any connection you need it to do, and it'll do it in 4K. And I gotta say, it's not like a gimmicky 4K or anything like that. No, it is a solid 4K throughout any of the connections that are on the back of this thing, and it looks crisp and amazing. Now, depending on the way that you want your setup to run and you want to be able to connect this camera or any of the controllers or other cameras that PTZ Optics offers, you will be able to do all those things solely online or through local network controls. And I will say, if you saw my recent videos where I was covering unboxings of my new Xtool lasers and the equipment that came in that huge package, well, the main dead-on camera was this one right here. And I did each video recording in a different way because I wanted to be able to experience the various setup options that this has. Now, I talked about it briefly, but it has network right there. It's also got USB, so you can plug it in via that. It's got HDMI, so you can capture video and footage and stuff that way. It also has 3G SDI, and it has RS-485, that way you can set up your controllers and everything else. It's got RS-232 in and out, that way you can daisy chain cameras together, and it's also got line in and line out for audio that way. This thing connects every possible way that you could ever need or want a camera to connect, and it does it with such simplicity that I almost thought I was doing something wrong because of how easy it was. For the HDMI connection, I just ran the HDMI connection. That was it. I ran it through my capture card, and there, my setup was good to go. It was just capturing the footage. It was working perfectly. And it even comes with this little remote so that you can control it via this remote control if you don't have an actual controller or if you're not using the actual online web controls that they have for an interface or something like this. Now, one of the other ways that I connected, USB. And it's like, okay, well, how good does that work? Well, I opened up OBS, it found this. That was it. That's how easy it is. Now, I will say, if you're using OBS, there is a special connection plugin that you have to get. It's free, super easy to download. It is the NDI plugin because the standards on this use NDI, and it will allow you to run it through OBS. However, if you use Slobs, the Streamlabs OBS, it already has the NDI plugin built in. So whatever you happen to be using for something like that, or if you're using some other different sort of software, as long as there is some capability with NDI, it plugs in, it works, it detects the camera, it's good to go. Now, the other way that I ran this, because I wanted to check as much as I could, I don't have controllers or anything like that, so I wasn't able to use an actual video controller. Maybe there'll be a future video on something like that, but the other way was the NDI link through network. Now that, it was as simple as running a network cable and plugging it in. That was it. Now, what's really cool about this is you can run it via power, so you don't have to have an actual powered Ethernet cable, or it'll also run off of PoE, power over Ethernet. And as long as you have one of those connected, the camera's gonna work, the online interface works, and it works great. I had no issues of any kind outside of when I plugged in to be able to find that NDI plugin. That was it, because I was using standard OBS instead of Streamlabs OBS. But once I installed the plugin, piece of cake, no problems. Now, so far I've been throwing a lot of different terminology at you with NDI and networking and 232 and with the SDI and all of this stuff. I will say, if you are someone who is looking for a new camera, you gotta ask, is this the right tool for the job? If all you wanna do is capture some footage of, friends and family moments, things like that, this is not for you. This is going to be something that is a much higher quality, much higher grade. If you are looking to up the game of your quality, if you're looking to do any sort of live production, in addition to offline production, which I've used it for, then this is something more towards upping your game in that department. You don't want to get this camera if you just want to start a YouTube channel and just look at the camera and talk. Okay? If you want to set up an actual production environment and you want to have multicam setups, things like that, this is definitely geared more towards those people. So remember, you got to have the right tool for the job that you're looking for. Now, as you can see, this thing, it's a little bulkier than a regular looking camera, but it has multiple options for what you can do to be able to set this thing up. Now, it can be mounted on a wall. It can be mounted on your ceiling. Okay? It can just sit down on something like this. That's what I used it as. And it can also mount to a pole. It has a standard tripod mount going on underneath this, so you can move this wherever you need it to move. And that's pretty awesome. If you have ever watched Tech Buzz Gaming, anytime he is at any of the conventions or anything like that, he has multiple of these running, and they're on all sorts of different connections and stands and slides and everything, because this is a high-grade production camera, and he runs a high-grade production setup. And he does it with these right here. It's pretty amazing, honestly. Now, I already mentioned that this thing is essentially plug and play. You plug it in, you're good to go, put it into your camera environment, your production environment, and it's ready. Now, what else is awesome about this is that they also have amazing support built up and ready to go for you to use. They have excellent customer support. If you have any questions, you just hit them up and you're good to go. And the last major pro about a camera like this is that unlike a TV studio or a traditional kind of setup, you don't need a dedicated camera operator. You can run one, you can run multiple, and you can run it all from one single controller or laptop, computer, whatever you want, and it will be good to go with one operator. You don't need one operator per camera, you need one operator per setup. Okay, now that we've gotten all the pros out of the way, let's talk the cons. Now, with everything I've said that this thing is capable of doing, and with the disclaimer that I gave that this is not entry level, this is definitely more of a prosumer kind of thing. It's a high-grade camera. Let's talk about the price. This thing right here comes in at $2,200. Now, you may have just turned off the video because you're like, holy crap, that's expensive. But when you compare it to other industry standards of this same grade, something like a Blackmagic Ursa, that's a $6,500 camera. And that's before you get into the fact of you need someone to operate it. You may need multiple different lens types, things like that. This, it's a third the price, and you don't need dedicated operators. So while yes, it's expensive, it's nowhere near what you would pay for the same level of industry standard devices that people use in high-end production studios. Now, the other thing that I will say that is a con, because honestly I don't really have a lot of cons about it, because it's a really good camera, is it's not for, I guess you'd say, the faint of heart. It is not someone who just wants a basic recording setup. Now, most people would think, oh, YouTube or basic recording setup. That's not really the case anymore. You have people that do that and they're very successful. And then you have people that want to branch out and do more with their production to add what they feel is more production value. Me, for example, I actually run normally a 3-camera setup. I've got a camera here, I've got a camera off to the side, and I've got a top-down camera. Now, I also have a wide angle camera to be able to get even more shots. And hell, I could take this, I could put it up on one of these shelves and it could point right down to give a different view of a top-down angle. This is something that is for somebody that wants to increase the size of their production, increase their production values via something like high-end hardware. And while that might not be for everyone, that's okay. But again, if you want to get into this kind of production level, then you're going to have to spend some money. This is $2,200, but again, something like an Ursa, that's $6,500. And I don't even know if that includes lenses or not. I'm not 100% sure. That might just be the body of the camera. But a third the price, and you can get the same kind of quality. So my final thoughts, final opinion on the PTZ Optics Move 4K 30X. It is an amazing camera. It is very, very easy to use. It has functionality that I can't use yet because I don't have the right hardware to do it, but it works with the hardware that I already have. I can run it through an Elgato to capture. I can just plug it in via USB and use OBS and I can capture. I can do that if I am recording locally or if I'm recording live. I can do all of that. Oh, I didn't show. It comes with a lens cover too. Look at that, cool, lens cover. But it can be mounted in multiple ways. I highly recommend this camera. If you want to up your production qualities and you want to go more towards a studio environment versus a point and shoot camera environment, which there's nothing wrong with either, then this is something I would highly recommend. For the cost of 3 of these, you could get one Blackmagic Ursa. I know I keep comparing it, it's because it's the most comparable one, but you could get 3 of these for the cost of one of those, and you would need 3 people to operate those, where you only need 1 to operate all 3 of these. I mean, it's a given, it's a win. If you're gonna go into that type of environment, why not get something that's cheaper and doesn't require the extra labor to run it? So yes, I highly recommend this. A huge thank you to the folks over at PTZ Optics for sending me this Move 4K 30X to check out and to now incorporate into my setup. I definitely hope to work with them more again in the future. They have some amazing controllers and some other amazing cameras that I would definitely love to check out and share with all of you. And if you are interested in picking one up, I will have affiliate information down in the description below. That way, at least, you know, I could get a commission if you're so inclined. I don't know if there's any kind of discount codes or not, but they do have sales that go on from time to time. So just be sure to check back. And if you have questions, reach out to their customer service because it's amazing. Now, if you like this video and you want to check out another recent video, then check out this area right here. And as always, I'm Game Dad. I thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you later.